Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? And it is a fine day. Got some quite exciting news to show you. Really have. Going to go back to the very beginning. Dan Cullen was here at 5:26 this morning saying, "Good morning, guys. It's Friday. Woohoo!" And he was that woohooed about it. He's not been seen since, but I'm sure he'll be back at some point. I'm going to say good morning to the fine folks over at Eberhard over in Switzerland. Just join us over on Instagram. Good to see you here. Love your work, guys. Gary Muirhead was first off the mark. Just as the show was beginning, 9:58. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, guys, and happy Friday. Obviously, 9:58 was quite early, so I called him out on it, and he said, "Yes, it's Friday. Early finish today and heading home. Not looking forward to the 5-hour drive home. I bet you're not, but think of what lies at the end of it. Christine, the kids, quite possibly a trip down to your local Italian. Happy days, happy days." Andy Thornton was here bright and early as well. He was here 9:59, as was when I can find him. Andy Dulville as well. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. We've got a new show sponsor. Got to be honest with you, I was planning to sit on this one until our 1,000th show, but I was that excited about it. It was a bit like a kid at Christmas. I thought, no, I can't wait that long. We'll be showing you those, that new ad. Well, it's one of a number of ads, actually. They've supplied us with a bunch, and we'll be varying those as we go along. I'll tell you a bit more about it as we go along. But very pleased to have them on board. Gary Muirhead says, "Nice hat. Thank you very much." Can you see the top of my head, or is the camouflage just blending in? That's what it's supposed to do as well. Alex Latham's here as well. Morning, Alex. Good of you to join us. Mark Whiting is here as well. And there is Andy Darville saying, "TFI Friday." It's Friday. Yeah, thank the Lord it's Friday. So we'll get to all of that good stuff in just a moment. But before I do the good news, let me do a bit of bad news. Another bad month for construction buyers. Yeah. Construction buyers reported another fall in industry activity in August, the 8th month in a row that workloads have dropped. And this is over on Construction Inquiry. You can see it if you would like to go over there. Just trying to find it. Apparently, this is the longest continuous downturn since early 2020. Put that in context, early 2020, COVID. So things are not good out there. Things are not good out there. And sharply reduced levels of housing and civil engineering activity were again the main reasons. You're 1.5 million new homes in the next 5 years, and housing workloads are down. Yeah, let me take that away and get rid of that, because I do have something else to show you. I'm going to say this. Andy Darvell says, "What hat?" Well done, sir. Well done. Alex Latham says, "Will we see you at Vertical Days next week?" You will not. You will not. But too much going on. And I've got to be honest, the last time I went to Vertical Days didn't really float me boat, as it were. Cranes and Access is kind of over there. Ken Hatcher. The sun shines upon the righteous, even down in Welsh Wales, where it rains 364 and a half days of the year. Morning, Ken. Good of you to join us. I will press your button. Let me see if I can find it. There we are. There's Ken's button. I do have one other thing to show you, if I can bring it up on the screen. I do that, and then I do that. Yeah. Now, that's better. According to City AM this morning, and Mick Norton sent me this, so thank you for that, Mick. Pothole Partners, JCB, is to be an official exhibitor at the Reform Conference. JCB will apparently be one of the official exhibitors at this week's Reform Party conference, where it will showcase a pothole machine in the latest sign of tightening ties between the poll-topping party and blue chip UK firms. The Yellow manufacturer, which is owned by long-standing Tory donor Lord Bamford, will be one of the prominent businesses at the conference. Plans to showcase its Pothole Pro. I'm going to go down a little bit. A spokesman for JCB said Reform's recent success at May's local elections, where it won an unprecedented 677 seats and took control of 10 councils, was behind the group's decision to become an exhibitor. The party has put highway maintenance and repair high on its agenda, and JCB is taking the opportunity to showcase its innovative pothole repair machine, it said. Now, where to begin with that? Let me put me back on full screen. As you're all aware, the Reform Party is kind of as far away from my own personal politics as it is humanly possible to be. My own personal feeling on Nigel Farage, he's a grifter who is basically feeding off the nation's quiet xenophobia, which hasn't been quite so quiet recently. But I think more than that, even setting aside my own personal feelings on this, from Margaret Thatcher to Boris Johnson and all points in between, the JCB has been a steadfast supporter of the Tory party, and it is now supporting, even in a very distinct way, it's now supporting the Reform Party. Does that mark a shift in JCB policy, or is that reflective of UK politics right now? Yeah, Neil Bruce is here again, all the way from New Zealand. Let's have a look. Is Miller not willing to be a sponsor of the show again? After all, they were one of the first ones to be a show sponsor and have faith in the show. Yeah, we've never had a falling out. There's never been a falling out with Miller, but we kind of had a very good relationship with their marketing lady. Marketing lady then got pregnant and left. And it all kind of seemed to go slightly awry after that. As I say, no falling out, still love them to death. Keith and Jackie are two of my favourite people in the industry, do a fantastic job. Very, very proudly support them whenever I can. But yeah, there's been a bit of a party of the ways, but through no fault of anyone's, if you see what I mean. But you'll be quite interested to see who the new sponsor is. And you'll see that very soon. Ken Hatcher says, wow, that's on the JCB thing. Yeah, I think, as I say, just completely ignore my own personal politics. I think that's a big deal. I think that could be indicative. I know there's lots of talk about Reform possibly being the party of power when the next election rolls around, and I think Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner et al. Are doing their level best to make that happen. But yeah, is that JCB seeing the writing on the wall? Jim Turner says Labour's traditionally come to power after the Conservatives have got the country back on its feet. This time they're fucked because the country was on its arse when they got it. Yeah, and it'll be even more screwed when they're finished with it. Doesn't it feel like that? Ken Hatcher says, yes, big shift for JCB. I wonder if we will see photo ops with Mr. Farage up at JCB soon. I wonder. Dan Cullen saying, good morning, guys. Sorry, I'm a little late. Not a problem, Dan. I'll expect a note from your mum or something like that to tell me why you've been so tardy today. I do want to crack on, though, because, as I say, we do have a new show sponsor. You've probably heard of them. Probably. We'll get to that in just a moment. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this here show on the road. Very, very quickly. Ken Hatcher says he's no, not that one. He's already been to JCB, has he? Do you know I was on a back when I was a protesty type of person. I went on a protest march once in the centre of London, and it was a bit of a sort of an anti-capitalist kind of thing, and there was some complaints on a big screen about certain companies, and one of the companies they highlighted was JCB. But I got the impression it wasn't the fact that they were capitalist, although obviously very sort of Tory leaning and everything else. I got the impression it was who in Britain makes stuff? Oh, that GCB crowd. We'll put them on the screen. I think it was as deep as that. Um, Neil Bruce says, is JCB big in the States? Obviously not as big as they are here in the UK, but they do actually have a manufacturing plant in Savannah, which I think is that Georgia, Savannah, where they make some of their equipment over there. I think they may well make a couple of their backhoe loaders over there, particularly for the American market. They've done some deals with the American military over the years as well. So not as I say, not as big as they are here, but they are plenty big enough. It is Friday. It is Friday, the 5th of September. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, the Komatsu PC220 gets smarter, faster, and better. We're going to be loading ships with a duo of Cenobogans. An XCMG equipment fleet goes mining, and the Kramer compact wheel loaders get a facelift. I didn't actually think they needed a facelift, but apparently they've got one regardless. Plus, in my morning monologue today, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, which kind of influences my question of the day today, which I've already put in the chat, but I'm going to remind you of exactly what it looks like right now. Now, I can't actually beat Gary Muirhead's answer to this because he said, question of the day, yes, buying a second-hand parachute from Facebook Marketplace. I'm wondering if this thing will bloody work. Fair comment. Personally, okay, so question of the day, just to very quickly recap. Question of the day is in relation to my morning monologue, which is entitled, If You Pay Peanuts, You Get Monkeys. So my question is this: have you ever taken the low-cost option on something and then lived to regret it? And personally, I mean, this is not unique, but I do have one absolute standout in this department. When I first left full-time employment to go freelance back in 1990, I went from having company car to no car at all. I went from having a fancy camera supplied by someone else free of charge to the prospect of having to buy one of my own. And to complicate things still further, I was getting married at the same time and going off on honeymoon and stuff. So cash was tight. At the same time, I needed both a car and a camera, so I rather stupidly opted to spend less on the car so that I could spend more on the camera. I think primarily because I'm more interested in cameras than I am in cars, not a petrol head at all. So popped out and I bought myself a really crappy, very used Vauxhall Cavalier so that I could buy the best Canon camera I could afford. Literally, the second time I used the car for work, it broke down, left me stranded in a quarry in Kent. Now, admittedly, I did take some very, very nice photographs, but they're not much help when your car is dead by the side of the road. So, has anybody else gone the low cost option and lived to regret it? That's what we're talking about today. Ken Hatcher says, no, I always buy quality stuff. The bizarre thing is, there are some things where I am a bit of a stickler for that. Shoes being one. I'm quite happy to pay a good couple of £100 for a pair of shoes because I know full well that that pair of shoes will probably be with me for 15, 20 years. I mean, I've actually I got married in May 1990. I was wearing Chelsea boots at the time. Still got them. Still going strong. They've been resold and rehealed a few times, but they're still going strong. So there you are. Same here in New Zealand. Is that the same here as in JCB? Not that big, possibly. Reform, Roger Mia, Ben Habib, and Rupert Lowe are already influencing government policy. Nobody needs to be in power to sway weak government that have no actual strict party policy. I think that's been really, really, really clear since the dawning of UKIP. If you think, our entire decision to put it to the public vote whether we should leave the EU was basically prompted by David Cameron panicking over a tiny, not particularly influential party called UKIP, UK Independence Party. Called their bluff, put it to the vote. We ended up leaving the EU, and I think we've got exactly the same again now. To be honest, I mean, I actually think that was part of the reason that the Tories lost the last election because, under Rishi Sunak, they basically seem to have one policy: stop the small boats. They didn't. They completely failed to stop the small boats, but they staked everything they were worth on stopping the small boats. Didn't do them any good. And I think Jim has got a point. I think regardless of the outcome of the next election, I think the Reform Party and Nigel Farage et al. Will have been a major influence in that. Jim Turner says Labour and Tories are the real grifters. Politicians are the real grifters, I would say. Gary says Temu, it always looks like a fantastic deal until it turns up, and in reality, it's just shit. Yes, I've not had any experience with Temu, but my mother-in-law, who really shouldn't be allowed anywhere near a mobile phone, regularly goes onto Temu. And on one occasion, she thought she was buying herself a dress. And what she actually bought was pretty much an entire page of a website. So she got her dress, but she also got shoes, and she got hats, and she got scarves. She got some very nice saucepans. There was a baking tray there as well, I think, and some other bits and pieces. Yeah. Neil Bruce going back down to New Zealand. Our leading brands would be Komatsu, Volvo, Cat, and a few more Sannies popping up in the forestry. I'm sure there are. Sanny are making some very good machines there, I have to say. It is time, I think. No, it's not. I'm getting my knickers in the twist. Andy Thornton says, bought a cheaper CCTV home security system which captured images of intruders. They should have been easy to find. They look like grey blobs in hoodies with no facial features. You'd think. I mean, does the TV show Crime Watch even exist anymore? I don't know if it does, but when you see CCTV, I mean, your own mother wouldn't recognise you from a lot of those photographs. Really wouldn't. Thank you for that, Andy. We've got, yes, we're going to play this first, then we've got a film, then I'm going to show you who our new show sponsor is. Back after this. Unless this country changes for the better. I'm not hopeful. In fact, I often look at the notion of emigrating. I've looked a lot more seriously recently, I have to say. Jim Turner says, I can see New Zealand looking like a serious option. Yeah. Neil, meet Jim, meet Neil. Hey, listen, you never know. Stranger things have happened. Now, if you go back to Balmer earlier this year, you'll know that I came back and I was raving about the latest iterations of some Komatsu excavators. I was particularly excited about the PC210, but the PC220 has got all the same bells and whistles. And this is what it looks like.
When we set forth to develop this particular machine, the PC220 LC-12, it was a big undertaking for us. We identified customers all across the nation. We sat down with them, and really what we do is we just listen. Every day, customers are being asked to produce at higher volumes than ever before. They're asked to do their business more efficiently, more cleanly. The changes that we're being asked to make required significant change to the product. We really had to go back to the drawing board, ultimately making sure that the end product delivered on all the requests made by our customers. One of the biggest priorities was improving our operator comfort. Significant improvements have been made so that they can operate efficiently and still arrive home happy, revived, healthy.
The larger cab offers more space and better visibility. The touch panel is easy to reach with ergonomic electronic levers. Air vents on the ceiling ensure efficient and comfortable temperature control, creating a highly comfortable work environment.
The overall design of the machine, I think, is very sleek and modern, but it's simple. If we don't want to go above and beyond and to the point where we've overcomplicated the machine,
I think the overall simplification of some of the mechanics that go with the machine is actually going to extend the life and durability.
It's a lot smoother than the Dash 11 model throughout its full range of movement. I think this is because of the electronic control system, and I think the integration of intelligent machine functions is going to really make it a lot easier to operate.
We've revamped our in-house components and hydraulic system with Komatsu's exclusive electric and hydraulic system, combined with a new high-output 4-cylinder engine. This has reduced fuel consumption significantly, improving fuel efficiency by 20%, boosting productivity by 18%, and increasing digging power by 7%. It led to a major increase in work efficiency.
The advanced technology features built into this machine with Intelligent Machine Control 3.0, being the third generation of Komatsu machine control, is really taking it to the next level.
With the industry's first 3D boundary control, we've set the machine's operating area using 3D terrain data, improving safety by eliminating the need to redo stop surface settings. Future software updates will allow for new features.
The PC220 LC-12 is much more than just a series change. I'm very proud to see the culmination of all the hard work, all the effort that a lot of individuals at Komatsu have put into this. It's a great performing machine, it's very comfortable, and we're very, very excited to be launching it and excited for our customers to get in it and operate it.
I have to say, I've seen that up close. It's every bit as good as they say it is. Now, going back to our question, it wasn't our question of the day. We were talking about possibly emigrating to New Zealand. Jim followed on with, I was talking to a young lady from over there the other week. She said it's nowhere near as good as it used to be, but by Christ, it's got to be better than here. Yeah. Dan, impressed with the Komatsu, looking forward to getting a seat in one of those. They look fantastic. Ken Hatcher, they're all going with electric servos these days. I think they are. I think you're right. Now, Dan, also going back to our question of the day, have you ever gone for the cheap option? And this is really cheap. Question of the day, bought a Corsa for 50 Irish pounds and it worked till I got home. Then the engine mount gave in and a wheel was hanging on by a thread. I saw a post the other day, may have been yesterday, day before, from somebody on LinkedIn who had been looking at train travel from, I think they were traveling from Leeds or Manchester down to London. And the cost of the train travel was 369 quid. I'm fairly sure that's, a return ticket, but 369 quid. And beside that, they'd put an advert for a second-hand car that they could pick up for 250 quid. And they were actually saying, we could get for 250 quid, drive it down, abandon it. Yeah, it's train travel, that ridiculous. And Dan also says, I bought a cheap coat, looked good, but wore it 3 days and it fell apart. That's why I buy proper coats. I don't mind spending 200 to 700 pound on one. The down is really warm. I would imagine, particularly things like with you guys, with things like site boots. You're going to be in them for days, weeks, months, years. It does pay to pay. It does pay to get the best. It really does. You could end up get your site boots on Temu. You could end up buying a dozen pairs while somebody's decent pair would still be going, if you get my meaning. Now, we have a new show sponsor. Quite pleased about this. They have provided us with a series of adverts. This is the first, as I say, is our new show sponsor. You've probably heard of them. Yeah, that explains the hat. I mean, I had the hat before, but yeah, Caterpillar are on board as one of our show sponsors. Can't tell you how happy I am. I mean, I worked with and for Caterpillar many moons ago. Obviously, they are the biggest in the world, and the fact that a global brand is willing to be associated with this little old show, which has only been in existence for 5 years, really quite pleased about that. Very quickly, they've provided me with a bunch of, I think, 6 or 7 different adverts, which we will be playing on rotation. And we're going to do that thing, that thing that John Lewis does in the run up to Christmas. They have their full length video advert, but then in the run up to Christmas, they do a shortened version of it. So we've got a bunch of them. A bunch of their initial adverts are about a minute long. That one was a bit shorter, but they've got about a minute long. So we'll play those for a couple of weeks, and then we'll show you the reduced versions as well. So, Caterpillar, thanks for your support. Thanks for your help. Much appreciated. Neil Bruce says, New Zealand isn't what it used to be. What country is? I mean, the 2 countries that I watch most closely is this, the UK and America. I think it's bad here. I actually think it's much worse in America. Really do. We booked our flights last night, by the way, for Kentucky. We're off to Kentucky for the Utility Expo, beginning of October. We've got our flights, we've got our Airbnb all sorted. I've never been to the show before, so excited about that. Never been to Kentucky before, excited about that. Going back to America, less excited about that. Got to be honest. Dan says, bought proper boots at the Firefighter Challenge. Well, firefighters should know a decent pair of boots, I would say. Gary says, Scott Rail scrapped the peak prices. It's only one price all day. Let me guess. That one price is the higher one. Well, if you think about it, you're also global. Well, yes, obviously the show is global. Don't think that puts us in quite the same class and category as Caterpillar, but delighted to have them on board. And Bert, if you're watching, cheers, buddy. That's much appreciated. No ordinary Joe Soap. Well done, Mark, on the sponsorship. Yeah, we've got a couple more ticking away in the background. As I say, JCB Caterpillar. I was hoping to actually launch it come the switch over to the 1000th show and the new look, which is coming together really quite nicely. Very pleased with that. I was playing around with that yesterday. But yeah, I'm hoping we'll get another 1 or 2 on board by Monday week, basically. Yeah, we are now. Where are we? 994. Show 994. We're 6 shows away from the big switchover, which I'm looking forward to bringing you. Anyway, it is time to show you another film. We're going shiploading at the moment, next rather, and we're doing it with Senebogen. Enjoy. Love me a Cenobogan. I have to agree with Dan. Be cool for a week or two, then boredom, loading and unloading ships every day. Yeah, I mean, they're a fantastic machine, but that, exactly the same place, day in, day out, doing exactly the same thing. Neil Bruce says, yes, Cat is up there all right with sales around the world. Then it's Komatsu and Sani coming in third. Are Sani third now? Globally? I know XCMG had got up to third at one point. Maybe they've changed order. Don't know. And Dan enjoying the tune. While I was talking, something's popped up over on LinkedIn that I want to share with you. Back in July, 1st of July, in actual fact, there was a Construction Leadership Council event hosted to address the mental health crisis that is impacting the UK construction and demolition industry. And the plan was basically that they would be following up that meeting with a consultation on the mental health and so on down the line. They were supposed to be doing that, bearing in mind that was the 1st of July, they were supposed to be doing that early in August. They've just issued a notice to say, just a quick update to let you know, we're delaying the start of the consultation on our mental health project to September. I mean, bearing in mind they're telling us it'll be September when we're already in September, that's one thing. But my mate Andy Stevens has just said, words can't do this justice. Absolutely staggering. Meanwhile, somebody's son, sister, best mate at work takes their own life in our beloved industry, and another one, and another one. Yeah. When faced with a crisis, the Construction Leadership Council pushes back the deadline. Good to know they've got our back, right? Andy Darvell says, I'm on a Cenobogan crane now. Lovely 70-tonner. Send us a photograph, Andy. We'd love to see that. Don't have enough Cenobogan. Well, not a big crane fan, but we certainly don't have enough Cenobogan on the show. Let me get back to where I need to be. That was Cenobogan, which means next up is this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, Andy Thornton doing sad face at the announcement from the CLC. Andy Stevens did actually go on to say, I've not got it in front of me now, but he did actually go on to say that the people that are responsible for dealing with this are not the right people. They are certainly too far removed. If you're sitting at the upper echelons of the industry, are you really, really, really passionate, interested, bothered about what's happening on site with mass suicides and stuff? Neil Bruce says, just done a Sani tour in China, and according to these stats, yes, they are, number 3. You're very lucky to have been to Sani. I did talk to them for a while back. I was approached to go to China with XCMG many, many moons ago, but it coincided with me having my face or my eye socket rebuilt. So I couldn't do that. Sani talked about it, never actually came to fruition, I think, because of timings again and stuff like that. But if anybody's out there that would like to take me to China to have a bit of a shifty around, I mean, I'm looking forward to Kentucky, but China would be a bit special. Next up is earlier this week, you might recall that I showed you a new mining excavator from the fine folks at XCMG, who we were just talking about. It's part of a mining fleet, an XCMG mining fleet that looks like this. Apologies, that's the wrong film. I've got two films, one of which is XCMG Mining Equipment. Obviously, that was the Grader film. I picked the wrong one, but I think you enjoyed it anyway. Andy Dovell says, great colour, like the old Terex. He also says, it's one machine I've yet to operate and would love to. Graders are amazing tools. They can do so much more than just level the ground. They really can. Always look very complicated to me. Dan Cullen enjoying the colour and saying, if he ever bought his own kit, it would be red or green or blue. Going back to Neil Bruce, Sandy says massive factory. Neil Bruce says about Sandy, massive factory. The layout is incredible. Yeah, those Chinese factories. As I say, I've only seen them from a distance, but they do look absolutely fantastic. Now, stand by your beds because we have a doctor in our midst, Dr. Yvonne Waterman. She said, "Good morning, Mark. I've just returned from Bergen, love Bergen, in Norway, to put the finishing touches on the Global Asbestos Forum. I'll send you some information soon. It's going to be very exciting. The best of the best, and a good chance of seeing the Northern Lights too. Please keep me in the loop on that, Yvonne, because I'd love to do it. As I say, I've been to Bergen before, but I've not been there in probably 25 years. I would imagine it's changed quite a bit. I have. I would imagine it's changed quite a bit, but yeah, would love to be a part of that, Yvonne. So keep me posted, and as soon as you keep me posted, I'll keep the audience posted. You know how these things work. One more advert, and then we've got one more film, and then we've got my morning monologue. So back after that.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Now, I am a big fan of the Kramer wheel loader brand, part of the Wacker Neuson family. I actually think the machines already look pretty damn fantastic, but they've had a facelift, particularly in the cab. I didn't think they needed it, but they've done it anyway, and this is what they look like. Yeah, been a fan of the Kramer brand for many, many years. We actually did the PR for them back in the early 90s when they were coming into the UK through Baco Plant down in Wisley. Wisley, Dan, you've been to Wisley, you know what it's like. Yeah, they used to be based out of there. Not bad, but buttons everywhere. Bit of a cluster. Well, some people like a button, don't they? Anyway, people, that's about it for the main part of this morning's show. Also it for the week, as it happens. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And I hope to see you again very soon. Monday would be good. I'll be back here on Monday. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return immediately after this. The night before last, I was sent a link to a newspaper article about a demolition gone awry. The headline read, Norton demolition temporarily halted after digger toppled onto side among rubble. As if that headline wasn't self-explanatory enough, they showed several photos of a New Holland excavator lying on its side. For all I know, that machine might still be there, lying among the demolition debris like a wounded animal. Quite how it came to be in this predicament is hard to say. Maybe the operator tracked the machine over an unseen void and it partially collapsed into a basement. Maybe the operator had built himself a platform from which to operate and then toppled off it. Maybe it was something else. But there is a clue. a clue into how this unfortunate turn of events came into being. And that clue is in the name on the hoarding around the site, which apparently reads Budget Property Maintenance and Rubbish Removal. That name might also go some way to explain why the fallen machine appeared to have no demolition guarding on it. Now, it would be easy at this juncture to point out, excuse me, I'll do that bit again, very itchy nose today. It would be easy at this juncture to point to the rubbish removal company and say that they'd overreached themselves, that they'd portrayed themselves as a demolition contractor, which, according to their name at least, they are not. That their confidence was writing checks that their experience was incapable of cashing. But budget property maintenance and rubbish removal didn't just pitch up and start demolishing. Demolition contractors, like vampires, must be invited in. Somewhere in the midst of all this, there will be a client or a local authority. In all likelihood, that client or that local authority will have put this project out to tender among a number of companies. They will have analysed several competitive bids, and they will have reached a decision, most likely because they were the cheapest, to choose a company that doesn't even have the word demolition in their name. That decision has now come back to bite them squarely on the arse. That project is probably now running late. The site has probably received a visit from the local council and quite possibly from the health and safety executive as well. And all the while, the words caveat emptor or buyer beware is ringing in their ears. Now, of course, this is not an isolated incident, and this issue is most certainly not the sole domain of the demolition sector. Just yesterday, the Federation of Master Builders, or the FMB, issued an alarming report about the financial cost to homeowners of using unqualified and unlicensed tradespeople. The FMB surveyed 2,000 homeowners across the UK and found that, on average, they'd lost £1,759 each to unqualified or unlicensed tradespeople. That figure was even higher in Scotland, with homeowners taking a hit to the tune of £2,647. The FMB report goes on to say that a staggering £14.3 billion has been lost to rogue builders across the country in the last 5 years. Now, the FMB report stops short of explaining why homeowners are using unlicensed and unqualified tradespeople, yet the reason is staring them and us in the face. In demolition and construction these days, it all comes down to cost. Or more specifically, it comes down to lowest cost. Oh, sure, modern contract waiting might have us all believing that there are other factors at play. The client might talk of quality, experience, competence, and capability. They might even stir things like sustainability and social value into the mix. But when all is said and done, the lowest bid generally gets the gig. And who is generally cheapest? Is it the demolition company that invests in constant training and career progression for its staff? The one that operates a fleet of factory fresh and super clean equipment that abides by every word of every applicable rule and regulation? Or is it budget property maintenance and rubbish removal? The issue, of course, is primarily one of mindset. Within client organisations and main contractors, there are now entire teams dedicated to identifying efficiencies and finding savings. And within trades like demolition, there are teams of people dedicated to giving those clients precisely what they want, even if that means operating at near suicidal profit margins. Sadly, what we're lacking here is consequences. It's possible that the fine folks at budget property maintenance and rubbish removal will have questions to answer. The local authority might like to know how the machine came to be lying on its side. The health and safety executive might like to ask the same question. But in all likelihood, neither will ask how the company came to be on that job in the first place. They won't retrace the paper trail to see if the client responsible had carried out its due diligence or whether it just opted for the lowest possible price. Instead, any blame will be aimed squarely at the company chosen rather than the organisation that did the choosing and set the wheels in motion towards catastrophe. Surely it's unfair to just blame the monkeys when those that were itchy nose again. Surely it's unfair to blame the monkeys when those that were willing only to pay peanuts get off scot-free. And is this not just another example of why we so desperately need a demolition and construction licensing scheme? Hence the reason it was called Pay Peanuts, Get Monkeys. And in the unlikely event that anyone from budget property maintenance and rubbish removal are watching, I apologise. You might be fine, upstanding gentlemen. You may well be very good at demolition, but although your name suggests otherwise. I apologise unreservedly. But over to the chat. Let's have a look. Dan apparently is still in Wisley, and I've missed his comment. I do that on a regular basis, Dan. There's a reason for it, because you comment a lot. No idea, Dan. I can't see it. Apparently it's on the WhatsApp group. Hang on a minute. Let's have a look over here. Sorry, just talk amongst yourselves. I will come back in just a moment. Yeah, Dan, thank you for sending that. I'll have a better look in just a moment. Neil says, enjoy your day, mate. Till next time. Cheers. Yeah, cheers to you, my friend. Thank you for joining us again. Peter McKenna has just arrived. Good morning, Peter. Good of you to join us. I'm not even going to mention the time. You've missed all the good stuff, the dancing girls and the free money, but there you are. Don't forget, was another machine rolled over yesterday. Evan J. Evans, a 30-tonner. Peter says, sorry, been busy composing songs for my group. Hope everyone is well. Well, I'm fitting well. Look forward to hearing your latest musical output. If it's anything like the transport industry, the blame will be on the driver or the operator. Yeah. I've had this theory in mind, and I hate to say it because it does make me sound like an awful person. But I think what this industry needs, and I think Didcot would be a good one for it to happen with. When Didcot is finally resolved, regardless of what actually transpires with any subsequent prosecution, it would be marvellous if the client were held to account. Now, I'm not saying that the client necessarily had anything to do with it, but I think what this industry needs and what this country needs is a client to be prosecuted over an accident or a fatality because they demonstrably chose just the lowest cost bid rather than taking into account competence, experience, and so on. We all know it happens. We all know that, regardless, if you got a demolition bid tomorrow and you put it out to tender among 10 companies, chances are, you'd have 9 companies all roughly the same price, and you'd have one that was about half that. And all too often, the client will say, I'll go with the one that's half the price of everyone else. That's not due diligence. That's just looking at the bottom line and saying that will do. And in demolition and in construction and many other industries, that won't do. Because ultimately, safety, training, the latest equipment, the latest safe equipment, all costs money. If you're not charging top dollar for the work you're doing, where are you saving money? Are you training your men less? Are you employing people that aren't particularly good at the job? Are you using old, unreliable equipment? Somewhere along the line, ultimately, we should be on a level playing field. Bearing in mind things like emissions regulations. Everybody should be operating machines that are up to that latest standard by now. If you're operating in certain parts of the country, like for example London, then obviously that standard will be a bit higher. We already know what is required of our people in terms of competence cards, regardless of my personal feeling on those. So everybody should be operating the same equipment. Their men and their women should be to a standard. We all abide by the same rules and regulations, so they should be to a standard. So how is it that one company is offering to do this job for £100,000, somebody else is offering to do it for £105,000, somebody else is offering to do it for £95,000, and then Joe Bloggs over here is offering to do it for £35.50? There's something wrong there. And unfortunately, all too often, those offering to do the job for £35.50 will get the gig. Now, 9 times out of 10, they may well get away with it. They'll, they'll go down the local pub and get some willing people with, a keen sense of adventure and no real interest in their own personal safety. They'll pull together a group of people to do that. They'll go and borrow a machine off somebody or hire a machine off somebody that isn't really appropriate. It's not got all the demolition package on it, but it'll do. And they'll fudge by and they'll get away with it and they'll get their money and then they'll go away. But sometimes they won't. Sometimes they won't get away with it. And when they don't get away with it, yes, they have overreached themselves. Yes, they have allowed their confidence to write checks that their experience and their competence is unable to cash. But ultimately, the arbiter here is the client. The client is the one that has looked at all those bids and gone, do you know what? Let's go with a cheap one. Goes back to Dan with his coat, me with my shoes, Gary. What was Gary talking about? Was Gary a car or something like that? I can't actually remember. Andy Thornton going with the CCTV system that everybody looks exactly the same. Buyer beware, caveat emptor. And particularly when a low quality car like I've bought, a dodgy quality pair of boots that somebody else has bought, Andy Thornton's low quality CCTV camera. It's an inconvenience. It's not good, but nobody gets injured. Nobody gets injured if I buy a cheap pair of shoes, apart from the soles of my feet. Nobody gets injured because Andy Thornton's got a fairly crappy Temu special CCTV system. But if you go cheap on a demolition contractor or a construction company or a subcontractor within the demolition and construction industry, people can be hurt. People can die. And as I say, when you look at the way that these things are weighted, and weighted as in WEIGHTED, weighted, not waiting for a long time, but weighted. Even I punched this into ChatGPT last night, and even there, it gave me a typical weighting, and it was things like experience and competence. They're worth 10% each, and something else was worth 10%, and something else was worth 20%. Price 40%. 40% of the decision comes down to price. Personally, I think that's wrong. I think price is probably 75%, if not more than that. I do genuinely think that in many, many cases, you will have an office within a client that has a desk. They've attracted 5 bids. They've put them all side by side, and they've had a look at them, and they've looked at the bottom line. 100,000, 105, 95, £35.50. Done. Sold to the company over here. Andy Darvell just said, I've just sent 2 photos, Mark. The second one, we were installing a 35-metre, 84-tonne concrete beam onto the bridge. I was just lifting the massive slings and shackles so they could be taken off. Have you sent that? Let me have a very quick look. You have. You're right. Let me see if I can. Now, can I do anything with that right now? I wonder. Bear with me 1 second. I should be able to airdrop that to my computer. So, just to fill you in on what Andy was up to. Where are we? Image file, that's what I want. And it's this one. There you are. There is Andy Darvell doing his thing. Now that's back to where we started, I think. Where was that one? That one. There you are. That shows it better. There is Andy Darvell doing his thing, lifting for all he's worth. Thanks for that, Andy. Much appreciated. Andy Thornton says, unfortunately, if you hold a badge, accreditation, or have joined a particular organisation, it's taken you're competent, irrespective of actual capability. Do you know what? I don't even think, in cases like the one I've just highlighted, I don't actually think that's even come into it. obviously I have my question marks over competence card schemes. Do they prove you're competent, or do they prove you've just sat a test? Personally, I think they mean you've just sat a test. Accreditation, if you belong to an organization, and I will use the NFDC as an example, just because you have an NFDC logo on your website or on your letterhead, does that mean that you are competent? In a way, it kind of does, in that there is a site audit scheme in place with the NFDC. But does it mean that you are elite? No, it doesn't. There are plenty of very, very, very good demolition contractors who don't belong to the NFDC, who are extremely competent. And there are some companies within the NFDC who are not as competent. So, yeah, Demo Dove says the lifting beam, the crane lifting the beams was a 1250 ton model. Andy Thornton says, Andy Thornton, isn't that just the same as a vocational driving license? Andy Darvell says, mine is the blue crawler. Let me just throw that back up on the screen. Here we are. Let me take that out of the way. So yours the one on the left, Andy. Sorry, I was just getting me my bearings. You're the one on the left. Very nice too. Very nice too. Anyway, people, that's it for this week. Thank you very much indeed for being here. By the time I finish doing this spiel, it will be an hour of your time that you're never going to get back. I'll be back on Monday. It is the official countdown. Starts Monday. Monday will be show number 995. So basically, we are closing in on the 1000th episode. Now, does that fall on a Friday? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, I thought so. Yeah, our 1000th show is Monday week. I thought it was. Now, for those of you that are a member of our WhatsApp group, I can tell you that we have. I've got a publication to share with you. I've written the story of the Breakfast Show from its inception to where we are today. It's only about 12 pages, but it makes for a good story. I'll be sharing that with you in the fullness of time. I may even do a video on it if I get the time to do it. So I'll keep you posted on all of that. But yeah, we are literally 5, 6 shows away from our 1000th show. So yeah, stick around. That's the big changeover. Dan says, I'll send you a mix number so you can organise for tomorrow. I'm starting to lose faith in that one happening, Dan, to be honest with you. I haven't agreed to do anything with my good lady wife, but I have told her that it's looking increasingly likely. I'll try and Mick again. If I don't get any answer, we'll have to do it some other time. And I know he's going off to Italy, but I'm fairly sure he's coming back at some point. So we may have to give it a miss this time, purely because I can't get hold of him. Everybody else, go and have a fine and splendid weekend. I'll see you back here again on Monday, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, full of the joys of spring and stuff. And because we have a new sponsor, we've kind of shuffled everything down, so I'm going to play you out with.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.